Eastern Conference. The Indiana Pacers are back in the Eastern Conference Finals, and they are playing against the New York Knicks, a team that has not been there since 2000. Patrick Ewing was still on that last playoff team that made it to the conference finals. It's crazy. That's crazy.
Like he was like, because he got injured during the playoffs. I remember that because like they had Marcus Camby starting. But yes, a long ass time. Charles Allen Houston, Charlie Ward, Chris Childs. Who else was on that team? I think Kurt Thomas was on that team. Marcus Camby, like I said, like that was a long time ago, quarter of a century. So
yeah, 2000 was a long time ago. A long time ago. So let's start here. Who is your X factor in the Pacers Knicks series?
Is Cat too important to be an X factor?
I don't think so. I think that's a great answer.
Because, like, I think, like, it was kind of telling how. I mean, like, it was easy to do, so I understand why they did it. But it was so telling how much of Boston's strategy was get Mitchell Robinson off the court because we want Karl-Anthony Towns in at center as much as possible because like that's our easiest pathway to easy buckets at the rim. Mm-hmm. And if there's any team that's going to exploit getting into the paint to kick out to shooters, it is this Indiana Pacers team. So if he can't hold up defensively, it's going to be a long ass series for the New York Knicks. Although can I just get on my soapbox for a minute? Like, I get it from a strategy standpoint. I understand it. It's much like, foul up 3 at the end of the game. But from an entertainment standpoint, I hate hacking. Like, yes, make your free throws. I get it. But again, from an entertainment standpoint, which is the whole reason that we're here is to be entertained, like, get that shit out of the game. Like,
you ain't wrong. It's not fun to watch. It's not fun.
No.
I get the strategy. It makes sense, but it is not fun to watch. I do think your point about Karl-Anthony Towns being an X factor for the Knicks makes a lot of sense too, because he killed the Pacers in the regular season in their matchups as well. And like I mentioned for Gobert, when we were talking about the Thunder and the Wolves, this is about to be Miles Turner's toughest matchup of the playoffs so far. No disrespect to Brook Lopez, but that was not a series for him against the Pacers. Jared Allen does not stretch the floor in the same way that Karl-Anthony Towns can. So, like, if he can be knocking down those threes, if he can be active defensively, it's going to be a big thing because he switched a lot in that Celtics series. And at some points, he was getting cooked. But in other times, it was like, you're moving okay. You holding your own here. And we'll see how that continues to shake out for them going forward. So that's a good one because my X factor, I said the Knicks bigs. So you cover Karl-Anthony Towns, but Mitchell Robinson, more specifically for me, because of how he was able to come into that game in that series against the Celtics and really just dominate on the glass in limited time, but he did his role well, playing defense, getting rebounds, second chance opportunities, being able to scramble out to the perimeter if there is a switch or he needs to help. Just fantastic defense from him. And I wonder, with the way that the Pacers push the pace after misses, even when you make it, I do wonder how that offensive rebound thing fits into this, because if they're going for these boards but they're not getting them, you're just going to fuel the Pacers attack and they're just going to take off and run. But the Knicks got Mitchell Robinson. They have Josh Hart, guys who really do like to crash those boards. So Mitchell Robinson, if he can find his way on the court and be the defensive presence that he was against the Celtics, that is going to help out the Knicks so much, because he was somebody who did not play in any of the regular season matchups against the Pacers. So he can be a guy who comes in and really changes the story for him.
Yeah, I was really impressed with the way he moved his feet specifically, like on switches. Like I think it might have been Peyton Pritchard. There's somebody in one of the games where it just like stuck out. Like he was step for step with him. I think he wound up fouling him at the end of the possession, but it was just impressive because like he was doing like that little it was Pritchard, and he was doing like that little dance on the baseline, like the up and under, like was trying everything, could not shake him, and then finally went like under the basket, and then Robinson went for a steal instead of a block, and he fucked it up. But like the movement with his feet was the impressive part. And again, going back to that Bucks series where it was obvious to everybody except for Doc Rivers apparently that Jericho Sims was the center that you needed in that series to be able to move his field, Bobby too. But like between like the Brook type versus the Jericho Sims, like the Jericho Sims guy is the one that you need. And obviously Mitchell Robinson is more on that end than kind of a plotting, just stationary rim protector like Brook. So yeah, like obviously I co-sign everything because I also picked a Knicks big. But yeah, I think that's a good point about needing switchable guys, and like the wings on the Knicks, all of them can play up. So like if you do need to downsize size wise, like that's the thing that kind of stands out to me about the Pacers and the Wolves. Both, I don't remember if I made that point. I think I put it somewhere in the doc. But just like having much more versatility than I realized coming into the playoffs. Like obviously, like they have their kind of standard lineups, but they also have a lot of guys that can play a lot of different positions and can throw out, so many different combinations to kind of fit the needs of what they're doing. It's like if we need to go really small, we can do that because we have wings that can kind of slide up. If we need to go really big, we have wings and forwards that can kind of slide down and run, So that versatility has been really impressive to me, and I think that's one of the most underrated attributes to successful teams in the playoffs is like how many different ways can you be effective, and those two teams specifically are, like at the top of the list.
Yeah, you got to be able to throw out different pitches throughout the playoffs. If you can only play one way, you're probably not going to make it long because the matchups will determine a lot. So you need to be able to be versatile enough to meet whatever's in front of you. And we'll have a lot of time to talk about it throughout the offseason here, but that's why like the path forward for the Bucks, where it's like if you can find these guys to put around Giannis, and with how the East is shaping out with the injuries, the Tatum and Boston and the Cavs flaming out a bit earlier, and then everything happening, like you can put together a team that could be scrappy enough to at least compete. Not saying for a championship, but you can get in the playoffs and see what happens from there. But this is not about the Bucks right now. They at home. We're talking about the teams that's still playing. So,
well, I think that's a good point to kind of highlight with all these teams. Like, granted, Minnesota and Indiana were here last year, but like we really are reaching a point of parity where it's close to the NFL, where it's just like you just need to be a contender, and then things break right for you in the playoffs. Like I'm not gonna say the days of dynasties are over, but the rules and the CBA stuff that the NBA has implemented over the last 10 to 15 years have all been geared towards getting us to this point where year in and year out, you don't necessarily know who's going to be standing at the end of it, because like you can't keep teams together. You can't just pay for, keep footing the bill and keep just incurring penalties. Like you have to be very intentional about your team building and get lucky with injuries, and you have, and catch the right matchups. Like there's no dominant team to fight, despite the fact that we had 2 or 3 65+ win teams this year.
3,
like 2 of them are home already. So it's like, and one was, in the game 7 in round 2. So there is important to be like, I think the most important thing is having your star, which is why you don't just trade them away.
Facts.
But having your star as your anchor and then building the team around them and to be as flexible as possible, both financially and on the floor.
Yeah, and I think too, and it's really interesting to think about this, and maybe we can talk about this once the finals pass, but just how the league is changing in that way, because I agree with you on the windows are so much shorter now for championship teams with the way the CBA is designed. And I mentioned it last year where I was like, I think that this is going to make teams invest a bit more in player development, where the rookies, the two-way contracts, those become even more valuable, and teams are really trying to develop these guys even more than what they were in past years, where some teams were like, we are only focused on winning right now. And I don't know if that formula is going to be conductive in the long term with just all the restrictions that happen once you hit the first and second apron. But we can talk about that later, because the way the playoffs have gone to with kind of teams that are still here, like the makeup of team chemistry, it's all really interesting to me. But back to the Pacers and the Knicks. What do you think is the thing to watch for in this series?
It's kind of not atypical. What's the word I'm looking for? It's kind of like obvious, but also it's pace. It's the pace that both of these teams play with. And it's like, yeah, they're both high-paced teams. So it's like, well, how is that important? Like, we know it's going to be a fast series, but the Knicks only go 7 deep. And, well, 7.5 if you want to count like campaign every once in a while. Like, and like, granted, like their starters are pretty much Iron Men, and like they play heavy minutes all year. So they're conditioned at the very least. But Indiana can go so much deeper into their bench, and they can run out all bench lineups and not really skip a beat. So it's like, if this is a track meet, all 7 games, or all games of the series, like, can the Knicks withstand that? Because we saw last year when these two teams played each other in the second round, like by the end of it, the Knicks barely could field the team because like they were so broken down. So yeah, like Charlotte said, whichever team's gas doesn't run out will make the finals. Like that's essentially it.
Yeah, and that's fair, because the Pacers even call the way that they play, they call it the wear it down effect, where they play fast and they have a lot of bodies they can put in the game so that their top guys don't have to, stay with those minutes. So on your point about pace being important, I mentioned the transition. Like, that's going to be a big part of what the Pacers look to do. Normally you say like the playoffs slow down. The Pacers, like, we don't want to slow down at all. If anything, we want to get faster as the playoffs are going on. So they try to wear you down. And they like to play transition. I mentioned the rebounding and how that is going to be interesting to me, because the Knicks love to crash the glass. The Pacers like to get out and run. So that's going to be an interesting battle. And on top of that, the Pacers are not a great rebounding team. The Knicks tend to be a bit stronger in that area. But even outside of that, to the point about just depth, that's another piece for me where I'm like, I'm watching how this plays. Like, depth versus the top tier talent. I wonder if this is the series finally for the Pacers where we can't go 10 deep anymore because we're not able to win those minutes. Like, if I remember correctly, I don't believe any Pacers player is averaging over 20 points in the playoffs. I think they're all under 20, but they have like 5, 6, maybe 7 guys that are averaging in double figures. Probably like 6, I think. I think I'm 7 in regular season, like 6 now. But that's their strength is in numbers. And I do wonder if at some point in the series, does that wear out? And they're going to have to tax their starting group a bit more just to keep up, because it's not going to be much time for Mitchell Robinson or Deuce McBride off the bench. And when they do get in the game, like, they know their roles really well. And outside of that, it's just like, can the Knicks be serious consistently enough throughout the game? Because we saw at times against Boston where you're like, what are y'all doing? On defense, y'all not talking, y'all getting beat. It's real sloppy. And then you see like a game 6 performance where they just shut everything down, like 4 quarters of flawless basketball. So it's going to count on people who we talked about, Mitchell Robinson, Karl-Anthony Towns. And on the Pacers side, I do wonder the Brunson matchup, because Nembhard tried that last year in the playoffs and he was getting cooked. Jalen Brunson tends to like being able to play against like-sized players because he can use his strength and his craftiness in that way. So I do wonder if Nesmith gets that matchup. But if Nembhard can't check Brunson, it's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
It's going to be a problem. All right. Pacers or Knicks, who you got, and then how many games?
Knicks in 6.
I went back and forth for a while on this one. I really think this Pacers team is good. I think this is a series they go 7. I think the Pacers are going to be able to stress the Knicks defense in a way that it has not been stressed so far in the playoffs with how much they move the ball. Halliburton is really, really good at seeing the help coming and making the skip passes. Like, they move the ball really well, and it's going to require the Knicks to be set solid. And I had some questions about to be able to do that, but ultimately I'm going Knicks in 7. I think it's a coin flip series, When it gets down to 7, 50-50 shot at it. And I think the Knicks come out on top just from the top end talent. And overall, I think the rebounding goes in the Knicks' favor to at least buy them some extra possessions against the Pacers. So I'm going Knicks in 7. Shaolin got Pacers in 7. I respect it. This is really a coin flip series to me. I'm excited about it. So
I think last week I called the Pacers. Well, I didn't call them this, but I essentially called them Muhammad Ali, where I think they just rope it up you, where it's like they'll not necessarily play possum for the first 3 quarters, but like they run you to gas you, and then when you don't have anything else left in the tank, like that's when they kind of turn it up. So again, like, are the Knicks well conditioned enough to kind of withstand that? Because they also had really big comebacks of their own in the first round, so maybe it's a similar kind of strategy. But yeah, there was something that you said that kind of sparked that. But yeah, to your point, I think it is a bit of a toss up. I think my hater side is just like I can't pick the Pacers, so I hope that they lose in 6. And like you said, like I'm kind of rooting for, just for storyline reasons, the Knicks and the Wolves and meeting up in the finals, which would be just very frustrating for me as a Bucks fan, because when they made the trade, I'm like, coming from experience, I don't know about making the potential trades like right before the season starts, and then both these teams, as of now, have made the conference finals, potentially making the finals. Boston won the championship last year. Like, of the 4 teams that have done that in the last 2 years, only one has had trouble. So that's annoying.
Hey, the Bucks got the good luck when we traded for Jrue Holiday championship the first year. So sometimes it happens. It just didn't work as well the second go around with Dame. But hey, life is what it is, Eric. It is what it is.